This is another Freedom to Feel conversation, and my guest today, for the fourth time, is Dr. Christine Silverstein. She's a peak performance coach, founder of Summit Center of Ideal Performance. She is a behavioral health registered nurse, a clinical hypnosis expert. Dr. Christine is also a researcher, historian, and the bestseller author of Wrestling Through Adversity, empowering children, teens, and young adults to win in life. So, this is my brief introduction. The full bio will be at the end. So, our topic today is redefining success, youth, sports, and a win win mindset. We talked a lot before. We had three interviews before this one. And this is relates to chapter 4 in Dr. Christine's book, Wrestling Through Adversity. So, two questions for you, Christine. What was the main inspiration and the main purpose of writing your book?
The main purpose was looking at situations occurring around the world, but particularly in the United States, at the time when I decided this is the right moment for me to write my book. And that was after I had promised my dad before he died that I would be a writer in his stead, because he never got to get the education to be a journalist. And then it's 20 years later, and I'm walking on the shore at the Outer Banks in North Carolina, just ankle deep in water. It was stormy weather, and I got swept out into the sea and was drowning. And this man came out of nowhere, because there wasn't anybody but this man on the beach. And he came up to me and he extended his hand and he pulled me out of the water. And I looked like a human sandcastle with all the sand on me. And he showed me this book. He was reading The Count of Monte Cristo. And I looked at it and he said, "This is 1,000 pages." He was a college professor. "This is 1,000 pages. Look, I'm reading this for my summer reading." And my dad always had me do summer reading when I was a child. He'd give me $1 a book, if I read them in the summer. And so I knew that was the time to write my book. And that was in the Labor Day weekend in 2021. It was during COVID. And so the following March in 2022, I began writing my book because I saw all these things on TV. There was Uvalde, the shootings in school. There was the war beginning. There were suicides. I'm reading articles. I'm very up with the things happening in the world, especially relating to children. So I see teenagers are in emergency rooms. They have suicidal ideation and they have no programs for them. And so the story goes on and on and on. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I've been working for over 25 years with these age groups, children, teens, and young adults. And I know there's something you can do to help them. And I know from my programs that I developed, and they're not getting the training and the education of what to do to become resilient. And they can, because some of the people who were committing suicide at the time, like in the colleges, they were elite athletes and they weren't able to transfer the skills they had learned, like how to be the captain of a soccer team in college, to life and to be able to be resilient. And I said, this is horrible, and we don't have the government resources. We have people fleeing the professions after the pandemic, like nurses are leaving, quite a few in droves, from the profession. And so who do you go to, and what programs are there, and what programs are there for your child when you need it? Your children as young as 2 years old were waiting in emergency rooms for treatment for anxiety. And I'm thinking, what is going on in the world? And maybe through my research and through my experience, my lived experience, which I do share in my book, as well as my case stories, this would be helpful to people, because I see the need for the paradigm shift so that we can look at wellness rather than illness, and prevention rather than, now my daughter's in the emergency room for 2 months. And, how is that going to be helpful for her well-being when she came in with harming herself, cuts on her arms? And so I just said, I'm going to do this. It's time. But I was ready for it. And then I saw what was happening and I said, I just have to do this. And I'm a qualitative researcher as a historian. So I wanted to put it into perspective to where we were in the past, where we are now, and where we could be, depending on what we want to do to help our children. And so my book is a call to action for parents and caregivers to say, I better learn something to help myself and then help my children, because we can't depend on these outside resources, to say, well, here is the suicide hotline number. You can save your child that way, and maybe you should know how to inject Narcan, to save your child. So before you get to that place, you want to, from birth, from infancy, help your children to be resilient by what you say, what you do. Work on your own traumas first so that you can help your
Yes.
children through theirs, and
Yes.
work on any trauma a child has early enough in life so they can learn how to be resilient. So no matter what happens, they know what to do and they do it. And so that was my motivation from the very beginning. And I'm so glad looking back that I did it then, because I don't know if I would have the energy or the mindset now, but it was the right moment for me.